Yeah, I know. He's doing another video on the villains again. How original. But hey, you all seem to be enjoying them, and I will take any excuse or opportunity I can get to talk more about Sombra. It's a win-win. Anyways, as you might know, I've done 2 videos in the past talking about all the villains. First, we looked at who's the most evil, and then we looked at their motivations. All of which is very interesting, don't get me wrong, but it kind of ignores the most important part of a villain episode. Is it actually entertaining? A villain can have an absolutely horrible motivation and an even worse plan, but if the episodes themselves are amazing, who cares, right? I'm sure you can all think of a character or two that fits that description perfectly. So today we're going to be looking at most of the villains that we covered previously, but just see how much fun their episodes are to watch. Plus, you know, that means I can reuse these stickers once again. This saves me the cost of having more printed. So, we have 20 villains, and a grid of 20 squares should be appearing right behind me as we speak. So let's just get started right at the beginning with Nightmare Moon. Nightmare Moon is arguably part of the most iconic episodes of the show. I assume every pony watching this has seen the season 1 opening at least once at some point in their lives. And while Nightmare Moon is an amazing first villain to open the show with, for me at least, she isn't the main reasons those episodes are so amazing. Her appearance is honestly kind of overshadowed by Twilight getting to know all of the main 6, even though Nightmare Moon is the very reason why Twilight realizes they represent the elements of harmony. For now, we move Nightmare Moon to first place, because there's no pony else on the board yet, but I'm afraid that she's gonna end up lower on the list than all of you Luna fans out there were hoping for. And next up is Trixie. Her first appearance in Ghostbusters was honestly just kind of okay. I get that there's a lot of you out there who really like her and that she was supposed to be intentionally annoying during that episode, but I didn't really find her annoyingness entertaining in the way that it was supposed to be. Magic Duel is a completely different story though. In that episode, Trixie goes from just being Twilight's opposite to being a proper villain, and I'm here for it. Having the fact that she was upstaged during Ghostbusters be her only drive to get more powerful by any means necessary, to the point of buying some shady amulet, is honestly extremely entertaining. Especially since the actual magic she performs during the episode is also just silly at best. Locking Twilight out of Ponyville by covering the entire town in a massive glass dome, it makes absolutely no sense, and that's why it's funny. I won't look into Trixie too much more after season 3 though, as she starts her reform and doesn't really appear as a villain anymore. Based on this alone, I would probably put her right below Nightmare Moon, but there's also that one scene in No Second Prances where Twilight basically villainizes Trixie just for existing. And honestly, the way in which Trixie, very justifiably might I add, calls Twilight out on her bullshit, absolutely amazing. Top 1 Trixie moment, honestly. That's definitely worth the top spot. Now, we could continue ranking all of the villains in order, but where's the fun in that? After all, Discord would have been next, and that surely would be way too organized for him. So from this moment on, let's just rank all of these villains in a completely random order. So then, for the next one, let's just go with the Storm King, why not? The movie is probably in my top 10 or 15 of favorite pieces of G4 media we have. So, by that logic, you'd expect the Storm King to take the top spot, right? But no, the Storm King can go right to the bottom. The movie itself is full of these amazing and epic adventures, so to then have the final villain be some overconfident and comedic, whatever you'd call this species, is kinda disappointing. Sure, the final battle was cool and heroic, but even then the spotlight wasn't on the Storm King. It was on Tempest for betraying him. And speaking of Tempest, let's also just cover her. After all, Tempest is the real carry of the movie. Like, just look at this introduction. She literally solos 3 of the princesses in a hostile takeover of Canterlot, all with a broken horn. Which, I know how you all felt when you first saw that, and I will judge you for it. I honestly don't really have anything else to add. With the current list of villains on the board, this is the easiest first place so far. We also have 3 G5 villains on the list, so let's cover Opaline first. I know and understand that a lot of you aren't a big fan of Opaline as a villain, and while there's definitely some room for improvement at times, you have to give credit where credit is due. The whole full-napping Misty to use her as a pawn in your evil plot was really dark and honestly pretty cool to see. The whole arc we get of Misty actually getting to know Sunny and her friends as a result of that was honestly one of my favorite parts of G5 as a whole. I think placing her just above Nightmare Moon is a slightly generous but fair decision. Then, moving back to the early seasons, because who likes consistency anyways, am I right? Iron Will makes 2 appearances throughout the series, in Putting Your Hoof Down and Once Upon a Zeppelin. Both episodes are honestly amazing, and I wish we got to see more of Iron Will's schemes. Especially the Zeppelin episode caught me off guard so much when I first watched it. A princess cruise that is all focused on Twilight is a beautiful idea. Let's put him in second place, right below Tempest. And, you know, let's also cover the other business entrepreneurs on this list. Flim Flam never fail to bring a smile to my face, from the super speedy cider squeezy to that weird tonic to conning a literal casino in later seasons. They are comedic gold as a duo, and that alone would put them in second place for me. But that raises the question, are they funnier than Tempest is scary? Honestly, yeah. Whenever I'm watching the show and I see the next episode is a Flim Flam one, it already puts me in a good mood right away. First place it is. And this is probably the moment for me to remind every pony that this ranking is not based on how good of a villain they are, just how entertaining and intriguing their episodes or movies are. Otherwise, I would have never ranked Flim Flam above Tempest, I know. But speaking of movies, let's cover Sunset Shimmer. And just like we did with Trixie, let's only look at the moments where Sunset was an actual villain, which in this case is just the first movie. And honestly, Sunset is a fun and interesting character, but only because of her redemption. Similar to what we described with Nightmare Moon before, the first EQG movie was great, there's no argument there, but not because Sunset was the villain. And where Nightmare Moon actually had the whole I'm a mysterious being who's actually a princess and the sister of Celestia lore, Sunset is honestly just a teenage girl with a bad temper who used to be somewhat similar to Twilight. I think I'm just gonna put her at the bottom of the list, honestly. Sorry, not sorry, Sunset fans. Chancellor Neisei is next. Why? Because I felt like it, honestly. Neisei got really bad scores in both my previous videos, as was to be expected. But were the episodes about the school fun? Honestly, yeah, they were. The season 8 finale more so because of Cozy Glow than Neisei, but pony racism was definitely an interesting new kind of friendship lesson for Twilight to have to deal with. Does Neisei still rank towards the bottom of this list? Absolutely, no questions asked. But as far as entertainment value goes, he definitely gets a better score than he did previously. After all, he got the entire fandom to universally hate him. Let's put him right above the Storm King, I think that's fair. And let's also cover Cozy Glow as well while we're at it. Now, Cozy has some interesting points. First off, her first couple of appearances are before we learn that she's actually evil. Where with Trixie or Sunset, we stop looking at them after their reform. For Cozy specifically, I do think we should look at these first couple of appearances as well. After all, since Cozy was a twist villain, all these seemingly innocent moments like her flunking her test on purpose or helping the young Six study were all part of her act, and it was genuinely really fun to see her slowly turning a little more chaotic until the big reveal in the finale. Since they made it relatively obvious to us as the viewers that she was going to be evil, it gave such a fun dynamic to the episode. I think Cozy deserves a spot right above Trixie. Then let's cover another one of the EQG villains, the Dazzlings. I know some of you have been waiting for this one. The Dazzlings add so much tension to Rainbow Rocks, while actually only appearing a couple of times throughout the movie. Just for that, I'd already put them right below Tempest on the list. But then there's also the songs. Oh, Colt, the songs. There's a reason that more than half of Rainbow Rocks' songs made it through to round 2 of my music polls, including all of the Dazzling songs. And that begs the question, battle, Under Your Spell, and Welcome to the Show, or Open Up Your Eyes, which is better? I honestly don't know, but have to make a decision. So just based on the additional lore of Equestria we got from the 2017 movie, I'm gonna keep Tempest in second place while the Dazzlings can stay where they are. Then let's cover another G5 villain, Sprout. I have made it no secret that I actually really like the G5 movie. Just wait until I make my video on all of the song polls to see exactly what I mean. Anyways, Sprout was honestly kind of annoying at first, being the lazy and cowardly sheriff's assistant, but his jealousy towards Hitch was genuinely very well written, and I loved his silly bits where he's just a complete moron, totally by accident. As a villain though, I don't think he posed much of a threat or had a lasting impact on me. After all, only the beginning and the end of the movie actually take place in Maritime Bay, and the conflicts in Zephyr Heights and the Bridalwood with Queen Haven and Alphabettle are just so much more interesting to watch. I think placing Sprout right below Nightmare Moon is very fair. Then let's cover another more difficult one, Queen Chrysalis. Chrissy has a major appearance during the wedding episodes in Season 2, as well as the reform in Season 6, and throughout all of Season 9. Some of those episodes are some of my favorites in the entire show, and some also exist. Overall though, Chrysalis episodes are usually a banger and almost always have some important plot development or epic fights. Compared to the movie or the Flim Flam episodes, I honestly think Chrysalis can just go right into first place. Then let's also just cover the last EQG villain on the list, Principal Cinch. Just like we've seen with most of the movie so far, Cinch as a villain doesn't really impact the movie at all, right up until the end. Sure, she forced Cezaryy to actually partake in the friendship games, but beyond that, the entire plot was purely developed by Cezaryy's curiosity for the magic, not by Cinch being an evil principal. I think she fits well right below Naysay on the list. Then we move on to Tirek, and as far as season finales go, I think we can all agree that the Tirek fight is about as peak as it gets. There's a reason it ended up as a finalist in the best episode polls after all. I remember basically being glued to my seat when I first saw those episodes. The pure power in that fight, and the show just completely giving up on their original target audience was such a nice change of pace. Even though I don't like Tirek as a villain that much, his original episodes are honestly amazing. Though, when he returned in Season 9, it was honestly a little more disappointing. Both Chrysalis and Cozy Glow had some interesting character arcs throughout the episodes, but I feel like Tirek just kinda remained the same. Overall though, I think putting him in second place is still very, very deserved. And with just 5 villains left on the board, let's cover the Pony of Shadows first. The Season 7 finale is probably one of the most forgettable ones in my opinion. Sure, the Pony of Shadows is a pretty terrifying villain when we first see him, but the episodes are kind of ruined by Star Swirl just being such a bitch all the time. And to top it all off, the final showdown with the Pony of Shadows is just Twilight giving another motivational speech about friendship, just like she's done so many times before. Not to mention that Stygian, after that, just never shows up again. I'm not even kidding, the only other time we see him is during the coronation in The Last Problem. He wasn't even there for the big group fight in the ending of the end. I'll move him straight to the bottom of the list, honestly. Starlight is up next, and you all know the deal by now. We're only going to look at the villain episodes, aka the Season 5 opening and finale. I really liked that Starlight was the villain in both ends of the season, especially with the Easter eggs of her showing up a couple of times in between then. The episodes themselves are really good too. I'm not as big a fan of the cutie map as most ponies are, but the cutie remark? Oh sweet Celestia, do I love me some time travel shenanigans. Though, as you can probably guess from my rant about the Pony of Shadows just now, I'm not a big fan about the motivational speech into redemption they pull at the end. But since the rest of the episodes are absolutely awesome, I think putting her right below the Dazzling seems fair enough. Then, with just 3 characters left, let's cover the final G5 villain, Allura. Now, Allura is a difficult one to place in my opinion. Outside of her introduction in the Secrets of Starlight special, she only appears in the Tell Your Tale shorts, which are just 5 minutes long. Plus, you know, I'm a really big fan of her design and her unfinished story arc, so maybe I'm a little bit biased. Her original appearance in the Make Your Mark special, though, is honestly really sick. Mind controlling an entire village into doing her dirty work? Hell yeah. But after that, her appearances in Tell Your Tale get a little bit cringy, and Twitch is just plain annoying. But once her character begins developing and starts to work towards meeting her brother again, I'm here for it. I think I'm gonna put her somewhere near the middle, probably right below Cozy Glow. And then we get to the final 2, Discord and King Sombra. I feel like after skipping him right at the beginning, it's only fair to first cover Discord. Now, we all know that he gets redeemed pretty soon after his original appearance. Therefore, the only episodes that I'm going to be looking at in this video are going to be his first appearance in Season 2 and him assisting Tirek in Season 4. While I'm not the biggest fan of how easily he joined Tirek during his episodes, you can't argue that all of the episodes I just mentioned aren't absolutely peak. He is probably my favorite villain in the entire show, just because of how unpredictable he is. After all, the whole reason why he got defeated in Season 2 was because he was convinced that the main 6 could never beat him in their current state. He could have destroyed them with a single snap of his fingers, but his true love of the game ultimately led to his defeat. I think I'm just gonna boldly put him in first place and leave it at that. Then, to wrap up this entire video, King Sombra, because who else would I finish with, honestly? Sombra, while being one of my favorite characters in the entire show, is honestly not that impressive of a villain. During his introduction in Season 3, he only appears for like 30 seconds before being destroyed, and while his appearance in Season 9 is a lot cooler, it's still nowhere near good enough to get anywhere close to the top of this list. Even with all of the mind-controlling powers he uses in Season 9, I just don't see him as much of a threat. Now, if we were to take Comic Sombra into account, he would shoot up the rankings quite a bit, but since we didn't consider the comics for any of the other villains either, it would be cheating to suddenly do so for our Shadow Daddy too. I think placing Sombra right below Nightmare Moon is just about right. And with that, we've come to the end of this video. Since I'm sure you will disagree with at least some of my takes, please do let me know what you would have done differently. But his true love of the cat. I actually wrote that. Fucking hell.